Welcome to the third lecture. This is a component of the third lecture on graphs, and I discussed different types of graphs with you in the third lecture. And here I'm going to show you how to create some of these graphs in Excel using data. And so let's start out with a line graph, which if you remember, I told you this is good for describing kind of trends and data over time. So here I'm showing you a line graph of total hospital stays by year, and I'm going to go through step by step how you would create this. So the first thing to do in creating a graph is you need to get data, right? And so under this descriptive stats here, I created this table of summary hospital data on all inpatient visits in a given hospital across these different characteristics. And so in this case, we want to look at total hospital stays by year. So what you would do is you would simply copy the columns, select them, and hit Control-C, and take them to our table here. Total hospital stays is the other one. You're selecting them all with the mouse, hitting Control-C to copy, Control-V to paste. Okay, we got the data we need for the line graph. Now to create a graph, you highlight all the cells, including the titles. Excel makes this pretty easy for you. You go to Insert, and you can see there are line graphs here. We're looking at a two-dimensional line. And so, we can look at different types of graphs that we want. Maybe we want a title for this one. So, well, a couple things here. So this is a good example of Excel is thinking for us, and we don't necessarily want to do what Excel is telling us to do with the data in this case. So in this case, it's actually graphing the year on there instead of putting it on the x-axis, and we don't want it to do that. We also would like a title in this graphic. So let's do a couple things here. Let's, first of all, in these chart layouts, we could, if you click around, they create different kind of formats. And so this third one here looks like it's probably a good format for our graph. And so in the chart title up here, we could type in total hospital stays by year. That's informative, gives people information that they want, so let's type that in as the title. Next, we want to make the year the horizontal axis instead of graphed on here. So what we do in order to do that is we click on the graph, we right-click on the graph, and this little menu comes up. And you go to Select Data here, and you can see under here it has year. It has year selected, and you want to actually remove this as one of the categories. And click here on the horizontal axis. So this is where you get your category labels, and right now it doesn't have any selected. And we want to give it this range here, going from 2001 to 2015. Click OK, click OK. There we go. Let's make the graph bigger. And so now you can see we have this nice line chart, total hospital stays by year. We probably don't have to label the line, seeing as we already have one of them. We might want to label the vertical axes though, just so we reinforce that they're looking at hospital stays. So if you go up here to this chart tools section, which shows up when you have the chart highlighted, if you click on layout and then click on axes, actually, let's go to axis titles over here. Go to primary vertical axis title. So right now it's showing none. Let's click on rotated title, and then we can enter a title here. So select this, and let's just call it total hospital stays. It's always good to create helpful labels in our graphs. All right. You can change the font size if you want. There we go. And so we can kind of see that total hospital stays were relatively stable and then jumped up around 2010, 2011 when what happened in that year. dependents between ages of 18 and 26 became eligible for their parents' insurance under the Affordable Care Act. And so perhaps that was why hospital stays increased. So that's an example of a line graph. What about a bar chart? So I got two different bar charts here that we're going to create together. The first is just the single bar, looking at hospital visits, incidents per 100 patients by age group, and then the second is going to break it out by age group and gender. So how do we do this? The first thing we need to get is our data. And so if you remember from our frequency table over here, we constructed these age groups, and then we had these hospital visits in the past year. So again, just copy, paste them. I actually already have these pasted here. Whoa. Let me correct myself. We're looking per 100 patients, so copy the right thing here. Looking at per 100 patients. Oh, here's a good reminder. So when I copied and pasted Control-C, then Control-V, what I actually had on the previous spreadsheet were the formulas. And so when I paste them in here, the formulas no longer make sense because there's nothing in this table for them to refer to. So when I paste, what I want to do is paste the values, and you can do paste special, or you can just see it listed here, paste the value right there. And that's going to put the actual values in rather than the formulas, which is what we want. And so to create this bar chart, again, we select the data here, go to Insert. We want to create in Excel, the kind of bar chart we're talking about is called a column chart. Just go to the simple 2D column here, and it is actually creating something based on the data. In this case, it's understood us better than when we tried to create a graphic previously. So let's make it a little bigger, right? We don't need this legend in the corner because it's taking up space and we're only describing one set of data. So we can delete it, make our title more informative, call it Incidence of Hospital Visits per 100 patients by age group. All right. And if we want to label the X or the Y-axis, we can do that here. Go to Axis Titles under the Layout, Primary Vertical Axis Title, and just call this Incidence of Hospital Visits per 100. There we go. We got our title. So that's pretty simple, right? So you'll remember I talked to you about these fancy grouped bar charts, right? Where you can show really 3 variables are actually involved in this group bar chart. And so what does that mean? In our case, we're going to be looking at incidence of hospitalization not only by age group, but by male versus female by age group. And so I actually don't have that data in a table, so we're going to make it up here. I worked in health insurance, so I'm used to making up data, do not fear. And so for males, let's just multiply the age group number by, let's say 0.9. Let's say that males have fewer hospitalizations up until age 45, at which point they start having more hospitalizations. And let's do the reverse for females. So I'm just creating some data here for us. Okay. So now we want to create a group bar chart. And Excel helps to make this easy for us. Again, select the data and variables there. Go to Insert and go to Column Chart and click on 2D Column. And Excel is pretty smart. So it's already kind of guessed what we want. Maybe we want a little bit different layout though. So let's do this, right? Here we go. So you can kind of play around with this up here to see what format you want this in. I like this format right here. So in our chart title, we're going to call this Incidence of Hospital Visits per 100 patients by age group, gender. Make the graph bigger. So you want to kind of get the arrows like that so you can pull it across. Okay, is there anything else we want? So you can see in this case the legend is helpful. We have the males in blue, females in red. So this gives you that idea of the incidence by these age categories as well as the difference by gender at these different age categories. So that's an example of the group bar chart. Let's go to the pie chart. So we're going to create this pie chart here. We're just going to look at the percentage of total hospital visits from our table by the age groups. So how would we create that? Well, first we got to get the data, percentage of total visits. Control C, copy it from there. Go to the pie chart. We don't want to just Control V it though, because then it would paste the formulas. We want to paste the values here. Select the data, insert a pie chart. And so this is what it's giving, what Excel's giving us. You know, we could kind of think about how could we make this look a little more easy to interpret. And so I like this view here. It tells you the age category and the percent in the pie slices. And so we could just call this percentage of total hospital visits by age group. And voila, we have a pie chart. Pie charts are really easy. Okay, so let's do a histogram now. So a histogram is a little more complicated in that, remember I talked about how we may want to construct intervals, and I've gone ahead and done that to create this chart here, but I'm going to do it together with you. And so let's go to this individual level data that we have on our patients, right? We had on patients 1 through 15, let's get their hospital stays and their total costs, because we're going to look at the total hospital costs based on mean hospital stays per patient. So you would think that as someone has more hospital stays, their costs for the year are going to go up. So from our descriptive stats at the individual level, we're going to copy the hospital stays, Control C over here, Control V. It's not a formula, so we're safe, and get the total costs here. Control V, paste it. And so now we want to kind of create these intervals that I talked about. And so there are multiple patients at these different hospital stays levels. So you can see we got 4 patients with 1 stay. So we create categories out of those. Let's create categories of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 plus. And so we've created exhaustive list of all the categories. And now let's get the mean cost per patient. So for patients with 1 hospital stay, we got 4 of them. We want to get the mean. And so let me show you how you can do that in Excel. You go to Formulas, and there's a little average button. You click on the average button, and then you select the cells that you want to take the average of. We're taking these 4 right here. Gives us the average. We're going to do the same for people with 2 hospital stays. So we got 4 of those. We're going to select those cells. People with 3 hospital stays, we got 2 of them. select those cells. Well, first of all, it would be good to, you got to hit it with authority apparently. Average, come on, Excel. Sometimes it helps if you talk to it. All right, select those two cells. Got the average of those with 3. Get the average of those with 4. That's only one person. Get the average of those with 5. So we select 2 cells. Then the average of those with 6 or more hospital visits. 6 and 8 right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a histogram out of this distribution that we've created here, right? We've created these intervals that are going to go on the x-axis and these values that are going to go on the y-axis. And now there's no magic in creating a histogram. Again, it's simply a column chart. And we have, voila, our histogram. We don't need a legend because we're looking at just one characteristic on the x-axis. So we can delete that. We could call this mean hospital costs per patient by number of annual hospital visits. So, not surprisingly, the more hospital visits you have, the higher your hospital costs are. And that's what this histogram is showing. Okay, lastly, I want to talk to you about the scatter plot. I mentioned this is a very useful way of looking at the relationship between two numerical values to see if it's linear or not. And so we're going to look at the relationship between total hospital costs and patient age. And I'll show you how to create this. So let's get that data. We're getting that data from our individual level hospital statistics. So copy patient age here, paste it over here, Control V, total costs, copy it here, paste it over here, Control V. And so we may want to sort this data. So I previously had it sorted by cost. So this will be a good reminder how to sort data. You go to click the Data tab, sort, sorting by cost, values, smallest to largest. Select the data here, go to Insert. So we want to look at a scatter chart. We just go up here to Scatter, click on Scatter, and oh my gosh, it looks different than the previous slide. That's because I made up the data on the previous slide so that it would look more linear. In any case, it's going to, here, let me just copy that to make it look more linear for us. Once you've selected something and created a chart based on it, when you copy and paste new values into it, it's going to automatically pick up on that. So we're calling this chart total hospital costs by age. So we want to update this. And look, we have a linear relationship. As age increases across the x-axis, kind of looks like we're getting somewhat higher costs here. Of course, the data is made up to look that way. But you get the point.